Hey, what's going on everybody and welcome back to another Pokemon Infinite Fusion challenge run. Today I'll be seeing if it's possible to beat Pokemon Infinite Fusion with just legendary Pokemon. The rules. Every Pokemon must be a legendary Pokemon for both parts of the fusion. There are no held items or items in battle allowed. And finally, no overleveling past the given level cap. Before we start our adventure, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Also, there's going to be a bunch of awesome fusions today, so let me know which is your favorite and why. Also, let me know what videos I should do next. I booted up the game and named myself KTT and my rival Dirty, like normal, before going out to grab my starter. I made sure to reset till I had a legendary as a selection, so when I went up to grab it, I was so excited that I saw Darkrai on the table. I went to check the other options, and saw there was also a Jirachi I could have picked. After weighing my options, I went with Darkrai, and quickly took on Dirty. He is a Jirachi and Tauros fusion that looks like some type of Rosalina from Mario Galaxy type color scheme. I went to go fight it and realized I couldn't do any damage to it, before eventually losing the first fight of the game already. If this was a Nuzlocke, I already would have lost. After that, I grabbed Oka's parcel and head out. Before starting the game, I made sure to randomize all wild encounters to hopefully be able to find a bunch of cool legendaries. When in the grass, I eventually found a Genesect. This is a Pokemon I don't think I've ever used before, so I'm kinda excited to use it. I then fused it with my Darkrai, and I've gotta say that this thing is amazing. I've seen a couple of Darkrai fusions, and they always look awesome. It looks like a scary crocodile with some type of cannon on it. After not being able to find any more Pokemon to add to the team, I headed over to Pewter City to take on the first gym leader, Brock. In this game, Brock has a signature Rock-type Pokemon, which were no problem for me, since I could easily one-shot his Geogy and two-shot his Dignyx, only losing 3 HP in the process to give us the first gym badge. After defeating Brock, I headed east of Pewter City and into Mount Moon, where I find everybody in a panic because Team Rocket just stormed by. Brock stays back to handle all the commotion when I chase Team Rocket till I find them trying to triple fuse a Rattata, Ekans, and Sandshrew together. Till of course they eventually failed in normal Team Rocket fashion and forced the researcher, Miguel, to attack me. I easily take him out, causing Team Rocket to flee. In return, the researcher was nice enough to give me one of the 2 fossils he had. Of course I picked the Helix fossil and headed to Cerulean City. In Cerulean City, I ended up finding my rival on Nugget Bridge wanting to battle me. I went into this fight super underleveled, and still with only 1 team member at this point, since I haven't had any luck in any of the grass anywhere. Somehow I was able to knock out his whole team pretty easily thanks to Derry, which I named my Darkrai by the way, being such a strong fusion with such a wide selection of strong moves and a great ability download. This ability will raise my attack or special attack each time a new Pokemon enters the battle, depending on their lowest defensive stat. I think this ability is going to be able to carry me down the line. After defeating Dirty, I made my way past Nugget Bridge till I found Bill's house, where he somehow turned himself into a Rhydon. I had to save him, and he rewarded us with the SS Anne ticket. Before I traveled south to find the SS Anne, we had to take on Misty first. We headed on into the gym, 1 level below the level cap, with Derry, and take her on. In my first attempt, Jigglydean just didn't take any damage from any of my moves, even with the stat boost each turn. I was able to slowly chip away at it and take it out, but it got me way too low in the process, so when she sends out her Odd-U, it instantly just knocked me out. On my next attempt, I was able to spam a bunch of different moves before eventually knocking out her first Pokemon with a Fury attack and still remaining pretty healthy in the process. So, now that I'm over half HP, I know that Odd-U was going to be easy for me, since I could just Flame Charge and it was going to be super effective. I easily 2-shot it, defeating Misty, giving us the second gym badge. You probably noticed that I still only have 1 team member. That is because I've been using the randomizer option and have been trying to find as many legendaries that I can in the grass. So far, I've only been able to find my starter and 1 Genesect and nothing else. I even tried going back to catch another Genesect, but after wasting 30 Pokeballs, I eventually gave up and knew it just wasn't meant to be. I knew I was going to need another team member going forwards though, so I decided that if I could find any pseudo-legendaries, that I would be able to use them until I could find any other regular legendaries. Technically I didn't specify this, all I said was legendary Pokemon, and technically they have legendary in their title, so I guess they could count. For now. So in the grass, I find a Metagross and Quilava fusion that I somehow managed to catch and separate. This allowed me to add a second team member, Metagross. Now that I can continue on, I hop on the SS Anne, grab the key, and find Dirty ready to battle me. He starts off with his Nidoto, which I easily one-shot Confusion with my new super powerful Metagross. Next up is Manecate, which I do the same to. Then out comes his starter, the Tauros and Jirachi fusion, Giraros. I decided to start the fight at half HP already and couldn't do much to it, so he took out my Metagross. So I then decided to send out Derry, who quickly took him out with a couple of flame charges. After that, I one-shot his last Pokemon Starbro, defeating Dirty. I then talked to the captain, who gives us Cut, and we make our way to the third gym. Luckily for me, the gym puzzle only took me a minute this time somehow, since I got the buttons almost back to back. This is probably the only ever attempt at this that I've picked the right one so fast. Normally it takes me 10 minutes at least, with all my bad luck. Still only having 2 Pokemon, I take on Lieutenant Surge. My first attempt at this fight didn't quite go to plan. He has Volpe, who spams potions that I managed to get knocked out by. After sending out Derry, taking him out, he then sends out Piccolet, who paralyzes me, but we still manage to easily take him out. Now it's time for his ace, which I am no match for, with my half speed and no strong moves against him. His Rybuzz managed to do a lot of damage with 2 Thunder Punches, knocking me out. After this loss, I went to the drawing board and looked at what I could do. I found the move Rock Tomb in my bag, which would do good damage and also slow my opponent, so I thought I would add it on Metagross and attempt the gym again. This time, I was able to slowly take out his first 2 Pokemon, this time just with Metagross alone, till he sends out his ace. His ace was still a lot of trouble for me, since it still did too much damage, eventually knocking out my Metagross. I then send in Derry, but without being paralyzed and its speed lowered thanks to the Rock Tombs, I was able to use a couple of attacks and eventually take it out, thus giving me the 3rd gym badge. After this, I make my way through Rock Tunnel, still not finding any new team members somehow, and into Lavender Town, where I find my rival in the Pokemon Tower. While there, he wanted to battle. Just like on the SS Sand, this battle was as easy as it could be. I make quick work of his Nidodo and his Gyarados before he sends out his starter. This was once again the toughest team member he has. Neither of us could do any crazy damage to one another, so we both just kept chipping away at each other till I was in the red and he was 1 hit away from fainting. Instead of swapping, I just decided to attack, and my Metagross managed to survive at 1 HP to take him out. Last out, he has a Starbra, who managed to take out my Metagross easily since I was only at 1 HP, and Derry came in and made quick work of it to take down Dirty. After this thrilling battle, we see Team Rocket up to no good and learn that they're doing some suspicious stuff in Celadon City, so we travel over there to find out what's going on. When there, we see our rival Dirty already taking out a couple of grunts at the entrance of the sewers. We then find out that this is actually a Team Rocket hideout. After making them retreat into the hideout, Erica, the 4th gym leader, shows up to help us travel through the sewers to take down Team Rocket. At the end of the base, we find the leader of Team Rocket, Giovanni, who is not happy with us, so he takes us on. He leads with his Arnix, who we easily take out with our newly learned Zen Headbutt. After that, he then sends out his Honkan, which for some reason, I didn't switch out for. Leaving in a Psychic-type Pokemon managed to get me put in the red with a single Shadow Ball, while barely doing anything in the process. I decided to just sack Metagross, but get a super needed Rock Tomb off first, to lower his speed before it takes me out, and I send in Derry. I tried to use my Ominous Wind twice before I even realized that he was actually immune to it since he's part normal type. I then quickly take him out with a different attack before he sends in his final Pokemon, Ryras. I use 2 more Ominous Winds into a Magnet Bomb to take it out and send Giovanni and Team Rocket out of the sewers and out of the city. Erica returns to the gym to once again open it back up, so we decide to head in there and take her on. First, I wanted to find another team member, so I traveled back in the game to every single different encounter spot available, and I didn't find a single legendary Pokemon or even pseudo-legendary Pokemon. I was super annoyed at this point with how bad my luck was, so I decided to take her on with just my current 2 team members and hope the next couple of routes had something. She leads with her Executo, and I lead with Gary, who is already super low from the trainers. I managed to take it to the red before getting taken out. After sending out Metagross, she uses a potion to take her back to full. I use 2 attacks real quick and take it out still at full HP. She then sends out her Tanape, which I one-shot Zen Headbutt. Her final Pokemon, Vilebell, then comes out, who I'm able to actually also one-shot Zen Headbutt to take her down and earn us the 4th gym badge. With this badge, we can now go back to the Pokemon Tower and climb to the top where we find the old man who we saved earlier, who gives us the Pokeflute as a thank you gift. This now allows us to wake up the sleeping Snorlax to the south of here and be on our merry way to the 5th gym leader, Koga, in Fuchsia City. Before I do anything though, I'm going to be able to get new members, hopefully, since Fuchsia City is the home of the Safari Zone. I'm 100% confident I can get at least a couple legendaries, either on my way or in the Safari Zone, right? And of course, I was correct. While running around, I managed to not only find, but catch a total of 9 more legendary Pokemon and 1 more pseudo-legendary Pokemon, Salamence. The 9 legendaries I managed to find and catch was 2 Jirachis, 3 Groudons, 1 Moltres, 1 Articuno, 1 Suicune, and 1 Zapdos fused with a random Luxio. Now I finally decided to set everything up and come up with 4 new team members to add. Sadly though, this is the end of our journey for the Metagross. Now that I found more legendaries, I'm no longer allowed to use pseudo-legendary Pokemon anymore. Before sending him to the box for the rest of his days, I decided to fuse him with his new friend, Salamence. Although this won't be on the team, I just wanted to make sure you got to see how awesome this thing looked. It's got great elements from both parties, and it makes me even more sad that I won't be able to use it or see it anymore on my team. After having to box a super cool and powerful fusion, we moved on to our first new team member, Zapdos and Articuno. This is a custom sprite that looks cool because of the slight changes to it. It's got mostly Zapdos, but with an Articuno tail and stance to it. Next fusion up is Jirachi and Suicune fusion. As you can probably guess, because there's a Jirachi, it has a very space feel to it. Suicune's flowing hair now turns into some type of space look, while also gaining the Jirachi head star and color scheme, which makes it look really nice. Next team member up is another Jirachi fusion, but this time with Moltres. Much like the Suicune one, it has a space feel to it, which is even more present with all the fire turning into outer space. It has a good Jirachi look and color scheme to match it, making an awesome fusion. The only thing that creeps me out a little bit is the third eye on its stomach. Yeesh. Now it's time for our last fusion. This is going to be a double Groudon fusion. I've been a huge fan of Groudon since I got Ruby as my first ever Pokemon game, and Groudon was the first legendary I've ever caught. He was also the first Pokemon, funny enough, that I got to level 100 too, by just defeating the Elite Four over and over again. I started fusing them to see what it looks like a primal Groudon. I love not only the fact that it's primal Groudon, who is already awesome, but it also has a low to high angle to make it look even more cool and scary. Now, with a party of 5, including Derry, I decided to give the new members names. I decided to give the double Groudon fusion the name Barry, close to Derry, but just with a B. The Articuno and Zapdos fusion the name Phil. I don't know why, I just wanted Phil. The Jirachi and Suicune fusion the name Sapphire, and the Jirachi and Moltres fusion the name Ruby. Now, after getting almost a full party and grinding them up, it was time to take on Koga. I thought this fight was going to be a little tough for me because of his ace, but I couldn't have been any more wrong. He starts with his Venomer, and I start with Barry. I easily one-shot Lava Plume it. Then comes out his Magnafing, who I also easily one-shot Lava Plume. Now he brings out his third Pokemon, his Beether, who once again takes an easy one-shot Lava Plume to the dome. After 3 easy Pokemon, it's time to take on his ace, Chinook. I was a little worried about this one just because the last time I faced him in my Charizard only run. Make sure to check out that video, by the way, after this one. I had a lot of troubles, but this time I was able to once again one-shot it this time with Earthquake to easily get my 5th gym badge thanks to my new team member, Barry. After defeating Koga, I headed back into Lavender Town so I can make my way into Saffron City. There's 2 main events going on here. The first is stopping Team Rocket, and the second is Sabrina, the 6th gym leader. I first head over to the Silphco building where Team Rocket are holding all these poor employees hostage. So I decide to make my way up to the top where I end up finding my rival Dirty, who wouldn't let me take on Giovanni till I beat him in a battle. So I decided to take him on. And my first attempt didn't go so well because I just ran in there willy-nilly without leveling or being prepared enough for a starter. On my second attempt though, it went much better. We started the fight off with Dirty sending out his Nidogeot, and I sent out Phil. I start out with a T-Wave before spamming him to death with Ancient Powers. I don't swap out, and he sends out his Tauros, which is kinda weird since he already has a Tauros fusion on his team, but whatever. This Tauros outspeeds me and easily takes me out, so I decide to send out Barry, who makes quick work of the Tauros before I swap out to Ruby, and Dirty swaps into Electados. I get a little chip damage off before ultimately fainting pretty quick, so I send out Derry next. Derry got a couple slashes off to knock it out, before he sends out his Gyarados, his starter. So I bring in the big guns, Barry. Barry almost one-hit Earthquakes it, before hitting another one to take out his starter. Last up is his Starbra, which is once again a breeze, since I still have Derry, who easily uses 2 Ominous Winds to knock it out and defeat Dirty. Now that Dirty is defeated, and he knows that we're the superior trainer, it was time for him to join our side and take on Giovanni and Team Rocket from attacking the Silphco building. The battle starts with Dirty and I sending out Phil and Nidogeot, respectively, and Giovanni sending out his Primarino and Ryros. Giovanni starts making quick work of my team, one-hit close combating Phil, and us doing barely any damage to him. I then decide to send out Sapphire, who I just now notice is misspelled, and I flip the R and I around. Oh well. Dirty takes out Primarino, and I get some damage off on his Ryros. Giovanni then sends out his Genkan. We all exchange a few attacks, and Giovanni lost his Ryros, and Dirty lost his Nidogeot in the process. Giovanni then sends out Sand Queen, and Dirty sends out Electados. This round of attacks goes horribly, with them teaming up on me till I faint and have to send out Ruby next, who gets one-shot by an Earth Power. Luckily, Dirty is putting in the work, knocking out his Genkan. Now I send out Derry, and see Giovanni's down to his last Pokemon, so it's just going to be a 2v1 from here. This last Pokemon, Sand Queen, was a real problem though, because it manages to take out one of mine and Dirty's Pokemon, before we eventually send out Barry and Dirty sends out his Tauros to knock it out, thus defeating Giovanni and Team Rocket in the process and saving Silphco. As a thank you, the head of Silphco gives me a Master Ball. I then make my way down the road to the Saffron Gym to take on Sabrina. Sabrina starts out with her Hypmime, which I send out Barry, who is able to one-shot Earthquake it. So she sends out Alabro next. This Pokemon ultimately was also just Earthquaked a couple times, till eventually faints. So far this gym has been a breeze. Next out is her Espeon, who takes a large chunk of HP to an Earthquake to only set up a Future Sight, which never came to fruition since I used another Earthquake to knock it out. Now it's time for our ace, Genkazam. This is a really strong Pokemon that pretty much always goes first, and even tries to set up on me with Calm Mind. I used an Earthquake before quickly realizing that it actually has the ability to Levitate. After realizing this, and taking a big Shadow Ball, I use a Lava Plume to get some damage off before being taken down. I then sent out our starter Dairy, who was able to make quick work of what HP it had left with a Feint Attack to knock out our last Pokemon and obtain the 6th Gym Badge. Next up is Blaine, who I normally take on right after Sabrina, but I was having some struggles taking him on, so I decided to take a quick detour and stop Team Rocket instead. On Cinnabar Island, I saw Team Rocket steal random sailor's boat and head to Mount Ember. When there, I found them in the home of the legendary bird Moltres. While trying to catch up, I saw them catch it and fuse it alongside the other birds to make a monstrosity called Zapmolkuno. I finally catch up to them before Giovanni attacks me with the triple fusion. This battle was definitely hard, since it has 3 HP bars and attacks to my 1 per turn. When I did a Nuzlocke of this game, I specifically remember this fight because the only reason I had a chance was because of multi-hitting moves like Discharge and Lava Plume that allow you to damage all 3 in 1 turn. Without those, I wouldn't be able to beat it in that run or in this one. After a long fought battle and almost whiting out, Barry ends up coming in clutch to take out the last leg of the fusion and all 3 birds. After that, the fusion split back into 3 separate forms before flying off. After seeing their plan fail miserably, Giovanni and Team Rocket scatter. Now that that's taken care of, it's time to actually take on the 7th gym leader this time, Blaine. Blaine was a little rough for me since 2 of my members were part steel. That being said, I started with one of them, Ruby, and he starts with Glue Dash. I use a couple flying type moves that do a good amount of damage as he's part grass type, till Blaine eventually swapped down to 9-9. 9-9 does enough damage to take me down to 5 HP, while I did enough to take it out. After this, Blaine then swaps into his Magdon, so I knew I was going to need to swap into Sapphire to use a super strong Surf that somehow didn't kill it because of its berry, but it then faints on the next turn to another Surf. Now comes a very hard Pokemon to take out, Chartdactyl. I'm fairly confident that the next move he uses on me would knock me out, but by the luck of Arceus, I managed to get 2 Surfs off on it, while it missed 2 Fire Blasts in a row to ultimately knock it out. He then sends back in his Glue Dash, which I easily knock out with a Surf, to defeat Blaine and earn us the 7th Gym Badge. I think this battle was definitely going to be a very different fight if I didn't get so lucky, but you take a little bit of luck when you can get a little bit of luck, you know? Anyways, since I already defeated Team Rocket earlier, there isn't anything to do other than head north of here to take on the 8th gym leader Giovanni for one final time. This was a super hard battle that took me so many attempts where I still only had my 5 team members who were just no match to take on Giovanni. So, I decided I had to get a new member. I don't know if you noticed, but in my party, I've had a Raikou I got after beating the 6th gym that I've been waiting to find something else to fuse it with other than the Groudon on my PC. I decided though that it is what it is, and I needed to do what I needed to do in order to beat Giovanni. So, I fused the Raikou and Groudon that I had together to make an awesome fusion that looks like an even scarier, more fierce version of a normal Groudon. This will surely be enough to allow me to take out Giovanni. After grinding up and starting off the fight, I led with my new team member, Radon, while he led with Rhyperios. I used a couple of Earthquakes before eventually getting taken out thanks to Giovanni being a potion spammer. So, I then send out my next Pokemon, Barry, who makes quick work of it in an act of revenge for Radon. Next comes out his Gochamp, who I easily one-shot hit with an Earthquake, which then leads to his Glistar. In my many attempts, this was the battle ender. It kept using Earthquake to all my team members, knocking them out, but for some reason, it just kept using Poison Jab, allowing me to quickly knock it out without losing very much HP in the process. Next up is Rylax, who I got a double Earthquake off on to take it out, but not before getting dropped to 21 HP in the process. I decided to leave Barry in for the last Pokemon Electatrio, who I thought I was going to be able to one-hit Earthquake, which would have happened if I didn't get hit by a Bulldoze. Now that Barry faints, I send out Dairy, who used 2 Blizzards in a row to knock it out and defeat Giovanni. This has now officially given me all 8 gym badges. The only thing left to do was go to Victory Road and travel past and into the Pokemon League. But first, Dirty stopped me for a quick battle. After preparing and taking out Giovanni, his team was much easier for me. I sent out Radon first into his Nidogeot, who I made quick work of, not even losing half my HP in the process. Next out was his Talcute, who I also made quick work of, knocking out in 2 crunches, but being brought down to the yellow. The next Pokemon out was Maghorn, who was even easier than the first 2, fainting to a single Earthquake. He then sends out his next Pokemon, Electados, who was once again able to one-shot Earthquake. His second to last Pokemon, Starkazam, could have taken me out if it didn't use Calm Mind and Future Sight, and just allowing me to knock it out with 2 crunches. Now, our newest and last team member, who is sadly still not named, and doesn't end up getting named in the whole video, is almost about to sweep my rival. There's only one of the most powerful Pokemon on his team left, his starter, Gyarados. With a little bit of bad luck, sadly, he does not get the sweep and faints. But don't worry, since I sent out our starter, Derry, to show Dirty that we have the better starter. After a bunch of random move spamming from both sides, I end up taking it out and defeating Dirty once again, and finally making my way through Victory Road and into the Elite Four. I'm having a feeling that a full party of fused legendary Pokemon is going to make this probably the easiest Elite Four that I've ever faced. But we're going to continue anyways. To start this off, we have Lorelei, the Ice-type member. She leads with her Magong, and I lead with Ruby. I use a couple of random moves, and can't do almost anything to it, before I eventually swap out to Phil. Phil's able to easily take it out with a Discharge, before I swap back into Ruby, and Lorelei goes into her Warehouse. This Warehouse easily takes me down. I then proceed to send out probably my strongest Pokemon and favorite team member, Barry, who is easily able to take it out with a few Lava Plumes. Next up is her Tentaster, who I don't swap out for at first, but I end up swapping into Phil, who is easily able to knock it out with 2 Discharges. I leave out Phil for her next Pokemon, Mambro, who I get some good damage off on before getting taken out. I then send Barry back out to knock it out with an Earthquake. After that is her Gingrowth, who I managed to easily one-shot with a Lava Plume to defeat her and move on to Bruno. I went to go and heal my Pokemon up in between battles before I accidentally started the battle against Bruno with half my team. I decided to keep going with the attempt anyways. I led with Sapphire and he led with Mevire. I get a good Psychic off on it before eventually getting one-shot by a Cross Chop. Next out is my Radon, who easily KOs it. His next Pokemon up is Marochan, who he would have been able to 2-hit Earthquake pretty easily if we didn't get confused and hit ourselves in confusion 2 turns in a row. With Radon down, we send out our ace, Barry, to quickly knock it out. We then do the same to his next Pokemon, Steel Champ, with a single Earthquake. After that, I learned Solar Beam, and out comes his Sizzicross, who I also one-hit Earthquake. I was almost able to do the same thing to his Magnanix, but it has the ability Sturdy, so it lived at 1 HP, just to faint to the next turn, allowing me to defeat Bruno and move on to the next member. Up next is Agatha, the Ghost-type member, who I do remember to heal before this time. She leads with her Mismabat, while I lead with Ruby. After both of us getting a couple moves, and me getting a lucky burn from Flamethrower 2 different times, I was able to take it down while still remaining pretty healthy. Next up was her Wobgar, who I was able to get a burn off and take it down to 1 HP before getting taken out and sending in Derry. I went for a Blizzard that missed, while it went for Destiny Bond, which I was worried about when it inevitably fainted to the burn. I actually thought it was going to take it with me, but luckily that's not how it works. And Derry was able to take on her next Pokemon, Gendoom. She ends up calling back her Gendoom for her Umbtar, who I almost knock out before getting taken out in the process. I then swap into Sapphire to take it out while Agatha sends back in her Gendoom. She hits a lucky 50% Inferno on us, burning us while we hit her with a Surf to take it out. But sadly, this burn took me out with it, so I decided to send out Phil to take on her Snorgar. I managed to take it down to half HP before it could do anything to me, and she decided to use Curse, for some reason, which actually just took out the rest of its own HP, to easily give me the win over the third Elite Four member, Agatha. Now it's time for Lance, the Dragon-type member. Lance leads with Dragodos, while I lead with Phil. I managed to do some good damage with Discharge to eventually take it out. After this, I swap into Ruby for his Toganite, who takes me out after healing. So I send out Sapphire, who almost takes it out with a Blizzard, and if I got a little bit of luck on my side, I would have been able to hit the second Blizzard to knock it out. But sadly, I missed and he knocked me out instead. So next up is Derry, who makes quick work of it. I then swap into Barry for his Typhnar, who I easily one-shot Earthquake, and swap back into Phil for his Tyrandactyl, that I was a little worried about. I had a good reason to, since he easily took out Phil with 1 hit. So I sent out Radon to do some good damage and eventually take it out with a couple Discharges. Last out is Poridra, who manages to knock out Radon, so we send out Derry. Derry uses Tri-Attack a few times, and with a lucky burn, we end up taking it down and defeating Lance. Now it's time for the champion. I run in there after healing up, and take on my rival Dirty for the last battle. All I have to say is my first attempt couldn't have gone any worse. He managed to Swords Dance and spam 4 restored so much that his first Pokemon, Nidogeot, was able to sweep my entire team. I wasn't ready to lose though, so I prepared myself a little bit better for the next time, and with a little bit more luck on my side, I was determined to win. The second attempt started with Dirty leading with Nidogeot again, and myself leading with Phil. Phil got some good damage in before ultimately getting taken out by some earthquakes, so I send out Radon. Radon manages to one-shot discharge it before he sends out his Rhyperior Mordor. I get a good earthquake on it before Dirty ends up swapping out to Tortor. His Tortor managed to spam potions and eventually Zen Headbutt to take me down. I then decided it was time to bring in the big guns. I send in Barry, our double fusion Groudon. He somehow lived an earthquake, but he gets taken down by the second one and goes into Starkazam, while I swap into Derry. They both chip away at one another before Dirty brings back in his Rhyperior Mordor, which I easily managed to take down. Next out is his Electabuzz. So I bring Barry back in to easily one-hit Earthquake it. Now he sends back in his Starkazam, so I send back in Derry again, who manages to take it out thanks to it not using any attacking moves on us. Now it's time for his strongest team member, his starter Pokemon, Gyarados. I feel like it's only right to keep my starter in there and take it on. Sadly though, I was once again bested by his starter, but luckily I brought backup this time. I sent out Barry. Barry was able to use a few Lava Plumes and take it out and defeat Dirty in the Elite Four. We now became the champions of Pokemon Infinite Fusion while using only legendary fusions. If you made it this far into the video, I would like to say thank you very much and I hope you enjoyed. If you did, a like and subscribe are very much appreciated. I'll hopefully be making more challenges on Pokemon Infinite Fusion and other games in the near future, so stick around if you want to see more. Until next time!